Hello, YouTube. Peter with you once again. And there's an old saying, apparently attributed to Vladimir Lenin, that goes, there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen. And this has been some of those weeks, and I've been thinking about making a video on this for a while, but as Bob Dylan said, don't speak too soon for the wheel's still in spin. And, wow, where to even begin? Because the last video I made was about the incident at the Trump rally. I don't even know what I'm allowed to say on YouTube anymore, so we'll put it that way, and you all know what I'm referring to. After that happened, we had the Republican National Convention, which was basically like the hype section of a WWE event. They even had Hulk Hogan there. Man, like my 5-year-old self would have been so psyched for that Republican National Convention. Me nowadays, not so much, but, you know, Hulk Hogan ripping off his shirt, and my 5-year-old me just would have ate that up. And then the picking of J.D. Vance, who, yeah, that was a dud. And then we got a news cycle out of J.D. Vance, and what a complete dud that guy was. I remember seeing one particular clip where he's just riffing, and he's like, I had a Diet Mountain Dew the other day. You know, somebody's going to call Diet Mountain Dew racist. And this is basically what I think of J.D. Vance in a nutshell. Although, I do want to make a separate video about, like, old J.D. Vance versus new J.D. Vance, because like 2016 J.D. Vance, I happen to agree with quite a bit. Not so much 2024 J.D. Vance. But as he's saying, you know, Diet Mountain Dew being racist, apparently by someone. In a nutshell, here's the thing. His shtick is that he claims this hillbilly lineage, right? That he's of hillbilly stock. He wrote a book about it. And he's also this sort of person who would talk about racism against white people, right? So Mountain Dew, if you go back to their old branding, it used to be entirely based on hillbilly caricatures. Even the old glass bottles used to talk about how Mountain Dew was made in the hillbilly style. And it's got a one hillbilly chasing down another hillbilly, and he's got a rifle in his hand, and the other hillbilly's trying to hide inside the latrine. Right, all of the marketing of Old Mountain Dew was based on hillbilly caricatures. J.D. Vance is the sort of person who would say that that was racist against white people. That's the sort of dude he is, in a nutshell. So J.D. Vance steps onto the national stage and immediately starts cratering as all the insane crap he said in the past comes back to haunt him. And then Governor Walz comes out calling them weird and creepy. And that not only stuck, but it got under their skin. And now I can't see J.D. Vance without thinking of Radiohead Creep. It starts playing in my mind whenever I see the guy. At that point, though, there was still the Joe Biden issue. And there was this swarm of will they, will he, won't he? Is he going to leave the election? There's all these pressure, more Democrats calling. And it was a dark time for anyone who didn't want to see Trump reelected. But then Joe Biden releases a statement saying that he's withdrawing from the race. And it was one of those situations where I saw it, and I'm like, wait, I need to verify that this is true, because I saw somebody else post, I think it was like a screenshot or something of it. I'm like, is this actually happening? Is this some sort of deep fake? After verifying it was true, there was that kind of, whoa, moment where I was taken aback. And my honest initial reaction was basically thinking, wow, he put his country above himself. Now, we can debate endlessly about should he have done it earlier, should he not have run for re-election at all of that. Nonetheless, it's clear that Donald Trump would never willingly give up power. He practically had to be dragged kicking and screaming out of the White House when he lost the 2020 election. J.D. Vance is clearly the sort of person who would lie and say anything and reinvent himself, say anything, do anything for power. And it's actually rare in politics to see something like that. And after nearly 10 years of seeing our political system become completely debased by people who will say and do anything for power, it, in all honesty, made me slightly, I don't know, I felt things. Let's put it that way. I had feelings. I was not just kind of like, that's the thing that happened. So then, approximately 30 minutes after Biden dropped out of the race, he endorses Harris to basically take up the torch. And I was amazed that the Democratic Party rallied around her as fast as they did. Now, there were a lot of people in the right-wing pundit sphere, particularly, who were saying that this was somehow unfair to the Democratic voters, that they were not given a choice. And what I think it is that they were hoping that the other scenario would play out, the one in which Democrats wasted more time infighting over who was going to take the nomination. And by cutting the Gordian knot and just having it be Harris as a Democratic voter, not necessarily a member of the party, but just as somebody who has yet to find any good reason to vote for a Republican, I don't have a problem with it. The only people that I've seen have a problem with it are Republicans who are hoping that Democrats would waste weeks infighting over who is going to be the nominee. That's the only people who are upset about it. But even I was taken aback by the meteoric rise of Kamala Harris. The first moment that I started to think about what this might look like was just after the debate. I didn't watch the debate live. I was actually editing a YouTube video of all things at the time. I start going on YouTube looking at reactions just after it ended, and there was a lot of doom and, oh my God, how do we replace Joe Biden on the ticket immediately talk, even from people who are pro-Democrat, pro-Biden. And one thing I saw was a clip of Vice President Harris defending Biden and the debate performance. And I said to myself, like, yeah, they need to put her out there a lot more, because she clearly has the energy and the drive and the ability to drive home the message in a way that Biden lacks, and they need to lean on her a lot more. And then they started to talk about what would happen if they replaced him on the ticket. And within a day or two, probably, after one, dark night of the soul, one day spent in a dark night of the soul contemplating another 4 years of Trump, I pretty much came to the conclusion that the best option would be to replace him with Harris. And so not only was I happy that's the way it went, because there are multiple reasons why that made the most sense. I was surprised, honestly, how fast everyone not only got behind her in terms of endorsements and no real contention over the nomination, but also that there was this massive popular enthusiasm. One of the reasons that I felt that it would at least make sense for Biden to drop out. I was never in the camp of he absolutely must, but I always entertained that possibility. As I said in my first video responding to the debates, what an alternative candidate, anyone really, does is provide a permission structure to all the people who were turned off by the election, who basically wanted anyone other than Trump or Biden. And Harris provides that, and we're seeing that now with the swings in the polls, that the public has responded to finally having an alternative to the race they didn't want, another Biden-Trump rematch. And now the Trump campaign, after the crashing and burning of J.D. Vance as the vice presidential pick, and after the withdrawal of Biden from the race and Kamala Harris becoming the nominee, the Trump campaign basically seems like they're flailing as they fall further and further in the polls. And there's a lot of talk basically amongst the pundit class saying, well, they knew this was a possibility. Why didn't they have a plan B? And my honest take, going back to something that I said in the video where I was discussing the debate, is that what it comes down to is that if Trump were to win the election, it would be because of low turnout and low enthusiasm. And that would allow him to leverage not only the Trump cult, but also the electoral college advantage that Republicans have. And that was his path to victory. It's just a low enthusiasm, low turnout election. Well, the election hasn't happened yet, so we don't know what the turnout's going to be, but enthusiasm, that has turned on a dime drastically. Again, even I'm surprised by the enthusiasm that people suddenly have. And then we had endless news cycles about who Harris would pick as a running mate. And this was the sort of thing that all the news organizations were hoping for with who would be the presidential nominee. Because that's what I think when the media was talking about What if the Democrats had an open convention? What if they had a blitz primary season? What they wanted was endless news cycles discussing different candidates. Let's look at this 6 of one versus this half dozen of another of this candidate. What about Governor so-and-so? What about Senator so-and-so? Meanwhile, the clock would be ticking. If you're, a Trump supporter or Republican, whatever, and you're wondering, well, don't you feel cheated by what happened with Harris getting basically anointed as the new nominee? No, I don't at all, because every day, every hour, every minute, every second that we weren't taking the fight to Donald Trump was wasted time. So, yeah, this was that, and situations like the campaign infrastructure, the money, so on and so forth. There are other technical reasons, strategic reasons, and it's worked out better than anyone imagined. So once the media had what they wanted in discussing who would be the running mate pick, there was a surprise contender, Tim Walz. And again, that landed perfectly. And it really starts to become like, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop? This is all going too well. Harris has taken off in ways that people never would have imagined a couple of weeks ago. Everything is going perfectly. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign is just completely flailing. The accusations that they're weird has clearly gotten under their skin. The crowd sizes really has gotten under Donald Trump's skin. And I gotta say, just on a personal level, the feeling of dread and impending doom that I felt a month ago is gone. That's not to say that I'm certain that she'll win the election. I'm not. But do I think that the picture looks far, far, far better than it did? Absolutely. Like I said, Trump's clearest path to victory was leveraging the Electoral College advantage of Republicans combined with a low turnout, low enthusiasm election. Underneath the surface, a lot of people, including Republicans, independent voters, are just sick of the guy. I remember, just to give an anecdote, after he lost in 2020, at Thanksgiving I went to visit one of my sisters, and her boyfriend was the sort of guy that you just look at him and you think, oh, this got to be a Trump guy, right? Loves college footballs, got a big truck, just looks like a Trump supporter. And even he was pretty down on Trump. He's like, well, what do you expect? People basically just got sick of him, thought he was nuts, was, bragging about the size of his nuclear button. And this was before January 6th. So even the sort of person that you look at him and think, this has got to be a big Trump guy, was like, yeah, I totally understand why he lost. And that's the reality. There are some who are they just believe all the lies about the election. Whatever Trump says is the gospel truth, even though he's obviously a pathological liar. Even in his most recent press conference, he's lying about the crowd sizes. He's making up stories of things that didn't happen, like being in a helicopter that almost crashed with somebody that he's never been in a helicopter with. I don't even think he's ever even met. He's like making up stories. Now he's the old man. Now he's the one seeming delusional and heading towards dementia, like signs of dementia. And part of the reason why it was such a relief to see a new candidate on the Democratic side was because people were just waiting for a reason. And it was clear that Biden had a ceiling because of his age, that those issues and others created a ceiling of support, a ceiling of enthusiasm that almost anyone else could break. And again, there were, advantages to having Harris as the nominee. It solved a lot of problems just to anoint her as the nominee and move on. And when you look at things like Republican primaries, there were a significant portion of the Republican primary voters who voted for Nikki Haley weeks and even months after she had dropped out of the race. Trump has a definite soft underbelly. And again, can't be certain which way the election's going to go. A lot of things can happen in the next 80-something days. But I'm a lot less worried about it than I was. Let's put it that way. And I realize I'm rambling here, but if you have a YouTube channel, sometimes you just got to make videos where you get your thoughts out, sort of video journal style. And I realize some of you don't even like political videos, but hey, what can I say? Have a good whatever time it is, and hopefully I'll be back sooner rather than later.